Well, to discuss this, I'm joined here in the studio by Hla Kyaw. He's the chairman of the European Rohingya Council. From Chiang Mai in Thailand, we have Nyo Ohn Myint. He's a former member of Myanmar's ruling National League for Democracy. And we also have Mohammad Yousuf Salim. He's the Secretary General of Bangladesh's ruling Awami League in South London. Gentlemen, I thank you all for joining us here on the Newsmakers. Let me start with you, Hla Kyaw.
Thank you very much. Yes.
This repatriation deal, is it a good idea?
I don't think this is a good idea at this moment because the Myanmar's genocidal campaigns against Rohingya people has not stopped yet. Every day, 200 Rohingya are fleeing to Bangladesh. In 2018, 1.5 months alone, there are more than 6,000 Rohingya already fled to Bangladesh. Many hundreds Rohingya are on their way to Bangladesh. There are 6,500 Rohingya are stranded in no man's land, getting threatenings from the Myanmar authority.
I see.
So this repatriation deal is really, to think of this repatriation deal is insane, utterly insane, while there is an active genocidal campaign going on against Rohingya
utterly
people.
Insane, as you say. Nyo Ohn Myint. So we have Hla Kyaw saying here that it's utterly insane, it's a genocidal campaign. Others don't use the word genocide, but they use the phrase ethnic cleansing, the US and the UN included in that group. That's why they're so suspicious about the intentions of Myanmar. Tell me why you disagree.
Yeah, because, you know, the government of Myanmar, led by the state councillor Dawn San Suu Kyi, and then military commander-in-chief, the senior general Nyo Ohn Myint, already promised and already follow the international standard. In this sense, that I'm not really sure that why the Muslims are leaving from Myanmar, especially on the northern Rakhine. But you know, this is what I really feel that because of the international pressure is that it was a little bit biased against the government and the Myanmar military. This is making a more trouble than a positive approach.
Okay, let me quote Amnesty International to you, if you don't mind. They say authorities in Myanmar have robbed, abducted, and deliberately starved Rohingya men, women, and children in an effort to make life so intolerable for members of the minority group that they will leave the country. Is Amnesty International making that up?
I think no one could prove it, that this is like kind of rape, like a rob, and then, you know, the extrajudiciary killings and stuff like that. Because that was the government, the authorities, which is the security forces. 16 has been charged against that the inhumanity. So in this case, why the international community needed more? What you know? The point is the Rohingya should go back to the Myanmar. That's a point. But right now, it was a more difficult situation. Is created by the media, international. It was like kind of very much like kind of witch hunt. It was not that the more positive and more cooperative, and because the government and military of Myanmar is not a part of the problem. They are part of the solution.
Okay. I want to get a response from Hla Kyaw, but just in a moment. So hold that thought for a moment. Let me bring in Mohammad Yousuf Salim. One of the criticisms of Bangladesh is that Bangladesh wants to get rid of this problem. They just don't want to deal with the refugees, so they're striking a deal with Myanmar and pushing them back. Is that fair?
Well, let me explain. Thank you very much for inviting me in your program. Bangladesh, it is not a Bangladeshi problem. Bangladeshi government is purely doing on humanitarian ground. Bangladesh has got no responsibility to look after the more than 1 million people. But the Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh recently visited Italy, Rome, and she was talking to the Pope Paul of Rome, and she was explaining, we are from the Bangladesh government, we are trying both ways. It's a very sensitive issue. Bangladesh is trying hard to minimize this human catastrophe by helping the people who came, Rohingya people, to send them back. And that's why recently the Burmese foreign minister visiting Bangladesh and we had a talk about that, and Bangladesh is trying hard as much as possible to send them back. So that is not the Bangladesh is trying both ways. International community, especially the United Nations, should be more effective to help to safeguard the human catastrophe.
And undoubtedly, it is massive.
These people.
Undoubtedly, this is a massive refugee camp. Bangladesh is shouldering a heavy burden right now. Hla Kyaw, I know you want to respond to what Nyo Ohn Myint. Certainly, and I'm going to bring you in a bit. Certainly, I'm going to bring you in again in a bit. But Hla Kyaw, you want to respond to what Nyo Ohn Myint was saying, because I saw you shaking your head vociferously when he was talking.
This gentleman living in Chiang Mai has never visited to Mongdo and Butidong. He has never seen what has been going on there with his own eyes. He is just swallowing what the military has been selling in whole country, like anybody else, including from all society, military, armed forces, governments, monastic orders, general public, everybody is swallowing what the military is selling. So he doesn't know what is, maybe he is ignorant or he is working.
Okay, so let's ask him, are you ignorant, sir? Are you just swallowing what the military is saying because you are in denial, you don't want to deal with the problem? Talk to each other, gentlemen, talk to each other.
I mean, actually, I just, flew back from Yangon yesterday. I do not live in Chiang Mai anymore. So, I just visited here for meetings. So that's why I was in a Rakhine state, and I got a lot of reports that I read, and because the problem was the very first problem is that the ARSA created the militant group, or the government that declared that, which is the terrorist group. So that created more the problem, and then the real problem is that I do not want to argue with him, but I just wanted to find a solution. This is what I really wanted to do it.
Yes.
Because there are two communities between Rakhine and then you call it the Rohingya, our Burmese called it the Bengalis, and then whatever you called it. That name is not the issue. The issue is that the both communities do not have a trust. So we need to build it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so Nyo Ohn Myint, this is an interesting point, because you say both communities don't have trust, but there seems to be a huge power imbalance here, right? You can't just say, okay, we don't have trust, we need to rebuild trust between us. Only one side has the military and control, and the other are stateless, homeless refugees. Hla Kyaw, you want to respond?
Yes, the trust, the trust between the Rohingya community and Rakhine ethnic community, the Burmese government has created this mistrust. This is the only.
Tell me how they've created
it. This how Burmese government has created that by spreading fake news, hatred, and by preaching, by using monks to preach hatred against the Rohingya, and by putting Rohingya as a national security threat, which is not true. Rohingya, we have been trying to be part of. We were part of Myanmar society. We were excluded from part of Myanmar society. We have been trying to be part of part of Myanmar society. But Burmese government has never think us as part of Myanmar society.
So tell Nyo Ohn Myint, in your estimation, how much, Hla Kyaw, of a percentage of those refugees belong to ARSA? He considers ARSA a threat. ARSA have done things. They've blown up soldiers and so on. So out of 1 million people, what percentage belong to ARSA, and what percentage make his theory plausible that there's a security threat?
There is a very, very small percentage of the young, the desperate, the Rohingya who lost their parents or who lost everything, and they have no hope in their life except responding the Myanmar securities, the repression, unbearable repression, persecution. So this group a very small minority, and this minority is the Myanmar government military has created a situation where this youth has no way except the holding what they have, like sword, like handmade, homemade weapons. This is not a terrorist group.
Okay.
How can you say this terrorist group? If they are a terrorist group, they would have the sophisticated weapons. They would have some strategy. There is no strategy. There is no weapon. These are desperate youth, Rohingya youth, who lost everything, including their parents, due to the Burmese security.
Okay, so Nyo Ohn Myint, Hla Kyaw is creating a context for this. He says, you deprive them of citizenship, you call them Bengalis, you don't give them rights, you have them living like rats in camps for decades. This is an inevitable development where you have some from among them who turn to extremism, and now the entire whole is being punished as a result of that. Tell me why you don't like that.
Because, you know, I would like to blame the former British, you know, the colonial, the masters. The British created the problem. And then the conflict started in the very, you know, the early 50s when the Rohingya militant killed the thousands of the Rakhine, the native. You know, the British colonial period, it also brought that the issue here. And then, you know, the government of Myanmar also punished and then also suppressed the Buddhist, that what he called the Buddhist extremists. So in that point that I don't think this is what the Myanmar government systematically create the problem against the Rohingya community.
But even if, even if that was true, right, they don't have any power right now. You have all the power right now. So even if that was true, and I know this is disputed, but you have all the power. Tell me these people have any political or military power at all. They don't.
No, I mean, the point that he said that no hope, yeah, of course, that in our country, it was not only a Rohingya, but also civil war, the more than, you know, 60 years of the civil war, it is still fighting. And then that's of course, we got a very problem in our country. Mm-hmm. But the point is that because of Arthur, they have a no hope. That's why they took it. The armed struggle against, and they beheaded the police. The 13 police in 2016, 2017, they attack, and then another killing. So, and then also killing because of the two community. I mean that Hindu community, the other smaller community, other smaller ethnic groups also fear. They all in fear. Okay. Not only the Rohingya.
Okay, I want to bring in. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so you say the others also fear them, and again, I'm sorry for interrupting you, Mohammad, Yousuf, Salim. I want to circle back to the idea of the repatriation deal. We have the UN refugee chief warning that conditions are not right to send Rohingya back into Myanmar, even if it's just 8,000 to begin with. He's saying the Myanmar government hasn't addressed their exclusion, denial of rights, and lack of citizenship, right? And of course, you have the monsoon season coming. It might make things worse. On top of that, Human Rights Watch saying they don't trust that Myanmar would be welcoming these people back. With all of those warnings, tell me why Bangladesh has still decided that it wants to proceed with this policy of cutting a deal with Myanmar and sending people back when the conditions aren't right.
Yeah, I am sure that United Nations concern is 100% right. But as I said, Bangladesh has got no choice, and Bangladesh sincerely wants the international pressure. International community should work more actively. My other friends were saying rightly that this Rohingya community, they are getting blamed for nothing. They are very weak people. They have got no sophisticated weapons. You cannot blame them. And at this moment, if we send them back like that, they will be in a serious problem. So international community should come. That's why our Honorable Prime Minister is talking to the United Nations officials and Pope Paul, as I said.
Right.
But nothing is happening. But Bangladesh, what can Bangladesh do? It's not Bangladesh's problem. Okay, Bangladesh is trying hard on humanitarian ground.
It wasn't Bangladesh's problem to begin with, but of course it is Bangladesh's problem in practice on the ground right now, whether you like it or not, whether you wanted to be involved or not. I want to move on very quickly because we're running out of time. Hla Kyaw, this is going to be for you. Here's a list of some of the demands by the Rohingya for voluntary repatriations. They want Myanmar to allow international media, right groups and humanitarian aid groups in Arakan or Rakhine State freely. They want the release of Rohingya prisoners without any exception, as they say. And they want no accusation on any Rohingya about any past event. Now, I mean, it's a bit unreasonable, isn't it? Because if somebody was involved in a crime, if somebody was involved in, for example, the blowing up of a police post or the beheading of someone who was part of the Myanmar army, surely they should face justice. Aren't these demands a little unreasonable from some of them?
Of course, if a Rohingya if Rohingya involved in committing any crimes, he should be face justice. He should be face according to the rule of law.
Right.
But you can't like, for example, recently Myanmar government released a list of ours. There is a list of children whose name is in the name of the child is a man name, but the picture was women. A girl. So it is really, so people are scared of this.
They're afraid to go back.
Of course, they are afraid to go back. They can never go to genocidal.
So what's going to happen? They're going to stay in Bangladesh forever?
No, they cannot stay in Bangladesh forever because they have to go back to their home ancestral land. But the international community, including Bangladesh government, has to create a situation where Rohingya can go safely with dignified way, with the guarantee to the citizenship and everything. If Myanmar government is not considering as part of Myanmar society, international community has to think of creating new and protected, self-administered Rohingya region. If Myanmar government is, I don't think Myanmar government would ever consider Rohingya as part of Myanmar society. In that case, the international community has to think of a UN-protected, self-administered.
Well, that's one of the goals of the Annan Commission report, one of the recommendations to eventually get to give the Rohingya people citizenship. We seem very far away from that for the moment. What is absolutely guaranteed is more than 1 million people are suffering. Hundreds of thousands of them are suffering unimaginably in terrible conditions.
Exactly.
We hope there will be a solution. Hla Kyaw, Nyo Ohn Myint, and Mohammad Yousuf Salim, I thank you all for joining us here on the Newsmakers.
Thank you. I can assure you, just borrow 1 minute, I can assure you Bangladesh government is working hard with the international community to help these unfortunate people of Rohingya.